Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing.
We do not have a quorum to officially start the meeting, but we do have some acknowledgements, and I would love to start with our acknowledgements. It is my pleasure to honor two champions for children who recently completed their service with the Juvenile Welfare Board. I will invite each of you up to the podium so that we may recognize your service to our children and families in Pinellas County. I saw Miss Susan Ralston. Is she? Come on up, Susan. Susan, please join me at the podium. Susan Ralston was appointed to the Juvenile Welfare Board in 2015 by Governor Rick Scott. She brought with her 30 years of experience in the public education and nonprofit executive leadership and served on the board's executive and finance committee during her tenure, and we did appreciate your service. Susan served us well as our board chair from 2019 to 2021. Welcoming in Beth Houghton as our new CEO as the chair's gavel was passed to her and successfully navigating our organization through the uncharted waters of the global pandemic. And you served us well, once again. Despite the challenges, Susan led us to the development of a new 5-year strategic plan, including a new strategic result area for early childhood development focused on our child's first 1,000 days. Under her leadership, our board experienced the loss of two long-standing members, retiring Public Defender Bob Dillinger and State Attorney Bertie McCabe, whose untimely death still weighs on our hearts. To honor and pay tribute to their remarkable legacies, Susan guided the staff in the creation of the Dillinger McCabe Putting Children First Legacy Award. Susan, you are a servant leader in every sense of the word, and we thank you for your tireless commitment to kids and for making our families and communities stronger. Please join me in recognizing Susan Ralston for 8 years of dedicated service as a member of the JWB board.
Well, thank you. What a way to start a Thursday morning. Bittersweet. It's been a wonderful 8 years. I think about the call that I received, just a little funny story. I was at my daughter's helping up in Atlanta, and it was a snow day, and you never get a snow day in Atlanta. So I was already a little cranky that my grandkids were going to be home. So the phone rings, and there's a call, and it said, "This is the governor's office." And I said, "Oh, sure." And they said, "No, this is the governor's office." And it was a wonderful day to get the appointment to Juvenile Welfare Board. And to put in 8 years of service here has been my joy, my pleasure, to work with the wonderful staff and all the exciting things that happen at JWB. And sometimes they happen beneath the radar. But those of us in the know wonderful things happen here. And one of the highlights of the 8-year tenure that I've had is leading the search committee for your CEO, Beth Houghton. So again, it's with great pride and great thank you for the people that I've served with and the people that I've served for. So thank you very much for today's recognition.
Next, Mr. Butler, if you would come on up. The Honorable Rick Butler was appointed to the Juvenile Welfare Board in 2017 by Florida Governor Scott, serving as our board secretary and as a member of both the Executive and Finance Committee, and you served as well. As an elected official and council member with the City of Pinellas Park since 1998, Rick brought decades of public service experience to his JWB board seat. He was a lifelong resident of Pinellas Park, owned and operated Rick Butler Realty for more than 30 years, and has been a staunch advocate for affordable housing and preventing homelessness, and we thank you for your service. Rick has a heart of improving the lives of children and families and has strongly supported JWB's work in the community, especially in the Mid-County Council. An ardent supporter of JWB staff, we counted on Rick to end each board's meeting on a high note by recognizing employees for their years of service during their anniversary month. Rick has been a driving force in Pinellas County for more than 30 years and a valued member of our board. Please join me in recognizing Mr. Rick Butler for 6 years of committed service to the children and families of Pinellas County. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, sure, thank you. Well, thank you very much. It's been a great 6 years. Great experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything, and I wish everybody luck that's going forward. It's a great group, and hopefully things will be going fine. Under the new leadership, it was the best thing we did. Wow. That's for sure. It's amazing. But thanks again. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Okay. We're going to do this right here.
Here we go.
Oh, look at this. One more if you don't mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank
And
you.
Yes, come on. We might as well. And then I was going to open it up for statements from the board who wanted to do well wishes for Susan and Rick anyways. So let's do a group picture, and then we will have you guys can stay up here and Say whatever you'd like to say.
Just for me.
I guess it hasn't happened yet. We should wait till we actually hear the click.
You guys are gonna have to snug up together.
All right. Well, you're the tall guy. You gotta get in the back.
Step into the
You gotta step back.
Yes.
Us tall people gotta be in the front.
This way.
We're gonna scoot this way? Yes, we
Yeah,
will.
away from the podium.
Okay.
You guys want to hold your stuff? Or?
Oh, I think you gotta
that'd be
hold your
good.
stuff. There you go. We're lots of directors. There you go.
There we go.
Here you go.
Mr. Burton, I can't quite see you.
Isn't that amazing? See, he tried to get out of it.
Yeah, you
Is that better?
Oh,
better?
that's beautiful. One more. Oops, sorry, zoom too much. One more just for posterity. Look at those fabulous smiles. Thank you all.
And at this time, I would like to open the podium for anyone who wants to make comments to the Honorable Rick Butler and/or Ms. Susan Ralston. Go right ahead.
It's been my pleasure to work with both Rick and with Susan over the past 8 years. Susan started, I think, a little bit after me, but proceeded very quickly before me to give out her experience, her knowledge, and her constant joy to support the children. And I think we'll all miss that over the timeframes that we're still here. Rick has just been an amazing participant in everything. He kept us grounded. He focused in on the real issues that we had. And it was always one of my favorite times at the end of each meeting when Rick had to give the birthday or anniversary times, because understanding everybody's name. My last name is McCurach, so you can imagine what that would be like saying. Just think about some of the other names that he had to try to pronounce. But he did a fantastic job about it, and we will miss you both this coming year. And hopefully you'll still stay in contact with us and really support and continue to help us grow the values of the JWB.
Mr. Ox?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It has been an absolute pleasure, not just to serve with Susan and with Rick on the Juvenile Welfare Board, but to have known both of them for many, many, many years, going way back to probably the late 90s, early 2000s. And so when I found out that you had been appointed, I knew that you were going to bring invaluable experience, but also insight. And you were not only advocates, but you also helped us be accountable. And so the holistic approach that you brought to not only what we do for the children and families we serve, but also for the taxpayers was just extremely well-rounded and, like I said, invaluable. So I hope we can continue that strong tradition, that has been passed down through so many other board members that we've served with. And hopefully we'll continue that. And I know that you will not be strangers, and do not ever hesitate to call or email or text or show up at a meeting and let us know what we should be doing. That's the only way we'll be doing it right. So thank you. Thank you.
And I would like to say thank you to each of you. Thank you for, one, your support to the board, number one, but thank you for the advice that you've given me throughout my tenure here at JWB. Susan, you light my fire. I want to thank you for always encouraging me to go above and beyond. And thank you. You will be missed. Mr. Butler, it has been a pleasure sitting next to you for these few years. I will miss you, and thank you not only for your service to JWB, but to your communities as well. Thank you. I'd like to now invite Mr. Mike McCurach back to the podium.
If I may just have a moment to
Yes,
thank them
ma'am,
both
Miss
as
Sarah,
well.
go right
I would like
ahead.
to thank you, because we came in, Bruce and I, with some pretty big shoes to fill. And both of you were so welcoming to both Bruce and I, and extended warmth and encouragement to us and guidance. And so that was greatly appreciated. And Mr. Butler, I've enjoyed you throughout the community on many boards that you served on. So your impact on our community has been far and wide, and you always bring a lot to the table. You definitely keep us grounded and keep it real. So I always appreciated that about you. So just want to thank you both for your service and your kindness to me in particular.
As you pass your gavel to me, allow us to recognize your service as our outgoing JWB Chair. Mike, your board leadership has been truly inspirational. Under your guidance, our board invested millions in new strategically aligned programs to further the work of JWB's strategic plan and increase much-needed services to our county's children and families. We tackle post-pandemic issues by investing in workforce stabilization for our funded programs, as well as a bulk food distribution to address chronic childhood hunger and food insecurity. And at the front door of our Family Services Initiative successfully moved 2 PIMs, resulting to greater efficiencies and increased aid to families. Though through unwavering support of our Children's Mental Health Initiative, work has been done to destigmatize mental health, prevent youth suicide, and expand our integration of behavioral health services within pediatric practices in North Pinellas County. Under your leadership, we celebrated our 75th anniversary with tributes by both the Florida House and Senate, and with a memorable awards luncheon acknowledging JWB's 75th year of putting children first and unveiling the Dillinger McCabe Leadership Award at a record-breaking post-pandemic 600+ at the Coliseum. And with your passionate belief in the power of play and the learning begins at birth, our board fueled a new campaign called Turbo Babies to promote early connections, nurture a baby's drive to learn, and support parents and other caregivers as their child's first and best teachers. As you pass the gavel of the board to me, let us recognize your commitment to investing in our communities to strengthen our community. Mr. McCurry. If I could be joined by Ms. Houghton? And Mr. McCurry, as Ms. Houghton is coming up, would you like to say anything?
I'm going to miss using this gavel. No, but I know very well that the judge will absolutely continue on the fantastic services and provide the leadership to the organization as we go forward. My last 2 years, well, actually, my last 9 years, being on the Juvenile Welfare Board have just been a tremendous value for me, and hopefully I've been able to provide support and efforts and value to the community. I'm still here. I was reappointed by the governor for another shorter term, but if it's anything like the last one, I was only supposed to be here for 3 years, and I've made it 9, so we can imagine what it's going to be going forward. I look forward to continue working closely with the staff, working closely with Judge Moore and the other board members, and to continue to drive the valued programs that Beth is leading and Beth and the team are leading. And you can be assured, Turbo Baby is my favorite show. And a little crying will help. But it is my favorite program, and we will continue to see it grow and expand. And it's one last thing on that. It has been amazing. I just came back from a trip overseas, and I was in Italy, and I ran into some people from St. Pete who were talking about Turbo Babies. So very interesting. So you know you're making the impact, and you know we're getting the message out, and the importance of 0 to 3 and the learning for our infants to become major players in this crazy world as we live in today, and hopefully taking us to the future. And I believe this work, along with what's going on with the Early Learning Coalition and the like, will drive this forward and make not only our children safer, but make Pinellas a better place. And hopefully, across the country, they'll see the values that are being created in this county. Thank you again.
Want them to step away from the podium a little? Yeah.
Okay, and would you like to put him in the middle?
You're going to be in the middle.
So over here. Yeah, put Mike in the middle, absolutely.
Perfect. Beth, can anybody step just a tiny bit further? Thank you. One more if you don't mind. Such lovely people.
Thank you.
Yes. We now have a quorum, and we will officially call the JWB Board meeting for October the 12th to order. If I could have the Honorable Sarah Malo lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. I would like to call for approval of our consent items at this time.
Second.
Thank you. And we will start with our action items at this time. We will start with, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to vote. I just moved right on. All in favor? All right, now I can slow it back down. We're going to start with our action items, and I would like to start with the Community Council appointment by Ms. Joanne Reich.
Good morning. It gives me great privilege to introduce to you this morning Ms. Dawn Hanley. Dawn is the mother of 2 sons and has been a resident of North Pinellas County for over 45 years. 37 of those years have been in my great town of Tarpon Springs. Ms. Hanley recently retired from Pinellas County Schools after working there for 15 years as an employee wellness coordinator. You may have seen Dawn around various parts of the community because she's been very busy volunteering for our organization as well as NAMI Pinellas and NAMI Florida. She's the founder of a nonprofit organization, Speak Up, Let's Talk About Mental Health, to create a purposeful legacy for her older son, Scott. This past summer, her organization partnered with 3 of our local youth community centers to offer a full mental health curriculum for our students. Dawn is devoted to educating our community, particularly our youth, around mental well-being, mental health, and suicide awareness. In her spare time, which is just a little bit, she likes to go camping with her husband and dogs. She's a swimmer and an avid reader like our CEO, Beth, and loves to travel to unique places. She's going to be a great asset to our North County Community Council and her continued relationship with JWB. I hope that you will move for approval.
At this time, I would like to see if I can get a motion.
A motion to approve?
All in favor?
Aye.
Is Ms. Hanley here with us today?
Yes, she's here and prepared to say a few words.
Welcome, Ms. Hanley.
So, thank you, Joanne. I really appreciate the nomination, and I'm looking forward to serving on the North County Council. I did create Speak Up, Let's Talk About Mental Health in memory of our oldest son, who struggled with schizophrenia for 10 years before he died by suicide in February of 2020. So it became quite a passion of mine to educate the community, particularly the youth, on mental health and suicide awareness and to make a change. So that is our goal. I have enjoyed working, and I'm going to enjoy working with JWB. I can't thank them enough for their support. Joanne, Becky, they have really supported our nonprofit and the programs that we've brought to the community. So I'm excited to continue working with JWB. So thank you so much.
And thank you. Next, we will have a presentation from the Early Learning Coalition budget amendment by Ms. Karen Bogus.
Hi, good morning. Karen Bogus, Chief Program Officer. I'm going to read the recommended action. Approve fiscal year '24 budget amendment for $173,691 from the Early Learning Coalition of Pinellas County School Readiness Plus Screening and Intervention Program to the Early Learning Coalition of Pinellas County for the School Readiness Plus program. Both of these programs lie under our school readiness and school success strategic results area. I know that sounds a little bit of like a tongue twister with all that school readiness screening plus, so I want to explain. Currently, in fiscal year '24, we have 4 contracts with our Early Learning Coalition. And by the way, Lindsay Carson, the Chief Executive Officer of the Early Learning Coalition, is here this morning to also help answer any questions that you may have. So we have 4 contracts. One of them is our school readiness match, which helps with this state funding, bring down local dollars for families who are 200% or below the federal poverty level, giving them access, and there's a few more eligibility criteria to that, but giving them access to childcare for our local children. Our next contract is our School Readiness Plus contract. We created this contract with the Early Learning Coalition and funded this starting several years ago, to really address that gap for those that we call ALICE families, asset limited, economically constrained families that are 300% to 200% of below the federal poverty level. Then we have our School Readiness Screening the School Readiness Plus Screening and Intervention Program, which we're talking about this morning. And that was started in fiscal year '23. And the reason why that was started and piloted with our school, along with our School Readiness Plus children, participants, and families, is to really help engage families more in the screening process. And when I'm talking about screening, it's to make sure children are developmentally on target, or if they are having delays, that we are linking them to resources in the community to get interventions as soon as possible. And what we found is that program was very successful in fiscal year '23, really engaging those families. So the 2023 General Appropriations Act included $315 million in ARPA funding from the American Rescue Plan Act, discretionary funds to be distributed to early learning coalitions across the state of Florida. Eligible expenses include a variety of activities such as family engagement, and these funds need to be expended by June 30th of 2024. So our local ELC is going to be using that funding to expand the screening and intervention program to not only the School Readiness Plus participants, but to all school readiness participants across Pinellas County. So therefore, the funding that we had allocated in fiscal year '24 for the School Readiness Plus Screening and Intervention Program is no longer needed. And so we are requesting to move those dollars to School Readiness Plus. It's such a tongue twister, School Readiness Plus, to provide additional access to those working poor families and getting them into care as soon as possible. So I open now for any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the board? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Bogus, you stay right there.
I
You have the
will.
next presentation.
Okay, the next item, I will read the recommended action. Approve budget amendment of up to $400,000 from unassigned fund balance and give authority to our Chief Executive Officer to allocate the funds to the City of Dunedin, our club, YMCA of Greater St. Petersburg, and YMCA of Suncoast for Promise Time programming. And this falls under our strategic result area of school success. So our Promise Time After School initiative has been going on for about 10 years. It is a partnership with our school district ourselves and the 4 providers mentioned, really helping engage students in after-school programming and providing academic supports to them during this time. Not only academic supports, but also youth development, enriching and engaging activities. Those students who are identified as struggling the most, meaning that they're scoring on state assessments at a level 1 or a 2, in addition are provided small group tutoring intervention services. So, and students in the program also receive what we call iReady assessments and online specific lessons directed to the skills that they need to improve on. So what we are requesting today is that there are 6 new schools identified in Pinellas County as Title I schools. To be a Title I school, you need to have 75% or more of your student population qualified for free or reduced lunch. So we have 6 new schools that meet that. So that means we now have 53 of our elementary schools out of 79 that are qualifying for Title I. In addition to those 6 schools, we have a 7th school, Frontier Elementary, who has been a Title I school, but the previous leadership at that school opted not to do Promise Time. The new leadership has requested Promise Time program to occur. So today's request is that we expand the program to these 7 new schools. And obviously the school year just started, so the sooner we can get these services happening at these schools, we would love to. And so this was not budgeted in our fiscal year 24 budget, and that's why we are requesting from unassigned funds, and we would need to consider this for our fiscal year 25 and beyond. I open up for any questions.
Any questions from the board? Any statements? Do I
Move
have a
approval.
motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Now
you.
we will move to our presentations, and we'll start with Ms. Megan Seals and Ms. Kelly Grossman regarding the home visitation program.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Kelly Grossman. I'm the Associate Manager of Program Administration, and I'm joined here today by Megan Seals, the Senior Manager of Performance and Evaluation, another tongue twister. So today we're here to discuss home visitation programs funded by JWB. We'll get the slides going here. So we'll highlight the purpose of home visitation today, discuss our investment in these programs, talk about the outcomes and impact that we're seeing, and also talk about where we're headed. But before we get started, I'd like to conduct a very, very scientific poll. Yeah, By a show of hands, who here is comfortable going home today and meeting a stranger at their door to come into their home, talk about some of the most personal things going on in their life, like their health, their relationships, their parenting? Oh, I have one hand. One hand. Wow, that's impressive. It's maybe because you do work in the home visitation programs, maybe. Yeah. So by the astounding number of hands I didn't see raised, we'll say that, I'd like to believe that probably most of us are not comfortable with just welcoming someone that we don't know into our home to talk about some of our most vulnerable subjects. And understandably, it's kind of uncomfortable. And that's the challenge with this kind of programming, is that staff have to work over those hurdles to build up trust and rapport with the participants they're serving. But I also think this is where the magic really happens. These home visitors often just become part of the family of the people they're serving. And before we move forward, I do want to highlight the high-level caliber of staff that make this possible. I see many of them in the audience today, some self-identified already. I see our maternal child health leader from DOH, Ray Hensley. Wave your hand. He's our very own Dillinger McCabe, Putting Children First Leadership Award winner. I'm sorry, Ray. Staff across these programs have been recognized even at the national level, and I think that speaks volumes for what they do. And as you can imagine, it's not an easy feat doing this kind of work going into people's homes. Next slide. So what exactly is home visitation? Quite simply, home visitation is bringing programs into people's homes, bringing programming and services into the home. While each program we're talking about today is unique, generally speaking, the JWB-funded programs include focuses on things like improving maternal and child health, promoting children's development and readiness to participate in school, and connecting families to needed community resources and supports. Now, while each program has different eligibility requirements and different screening mechanisms, generally individuals can be screened and assessed in a number of ways, including at their doctor's office, the hospital, or could even be self-referred. Some examples of services include supporting healthy pregnancy practices, education on topics such as breastfeeding, safe sleep, preventable child death, and even nutrition. It's teaching positive parenting skills and like reading and playing and praising good behavior. And lastly, it's working with parents to set goals for their future, and such as continuing their education, finding employment, and even identifying childcare options. Lastly, the key focus of this programming is the prevention of child abuse and neglect. The overall strategic goal for this focus area is that children will grow up and thrive in safe and healthy environments. All of these programs strive to reduce maltreatment, and each has a specific approach to achieve this common goal. Each program is unique, so today I'm just going to provide a high-level overview of each of their programming. You'll see them listed on the screen, and you'll also see the N labeled there, which is the number of participants they served during fiscal year 2022. So I'm going to start off with Healthy Families Pinellas at DOH. This is an intensive evidence-based model of home visitation that serves families countywide, focusing on educating and supporting families from pregnancy until the child is age 5. I alluded to earlier, some of these programs could be working with the same family for 5 to 6 years, depending on when they enroll. So they really do become part of that family atmosphere. Next up, we have Nurse Family Partnership, which is also an evidence-based home visitation program, and it's intended for first-time mothers. What's unique about this program is that it's staffed by nurses who, in addition to many of the same educational components I mentioned earlier, they do nursing assessments and do things like taking vitals and weighing the babies and such during their visits. This program is intended to serve women prior to their 3rd trimester and works with families up until the child's 2nd birthday. Next up, we have Operation PARS Motivating New Parents. This is an intensive intervention program that focuses on parents with substance-exposed infants or who may be at risk of substance use. Services are designed for both the mothers and the fathers and who are parenting children age 0 to 5 and include things like wraparound case management, linkage to treatment, parenting education, and they also utilize a variety of mental health interventions as a best practice. And lastly, we have the Children's Home Network Kinship Program, which provides an intensive 6-month prevention program to support children who are living with relatives or non-relative caregivers. Ongoing family support groups are also offered as part of their programming. Staff work with the caregivers to identify strengths and achieve access to sustainable supports and services. And now I'm going to turn it over to Megan, who's going to talk about the outcomes that we're seeing.
Thank you, Kelly. So as Kelly said, all the data we're going to focus on today is for fiscal year 2020. The total investments for these programs make up just over $8.5 million. And we served just under 2,500 individuals in this, a makeup of adults and children. So let's talk about this group a little bit, the population that we did serve. I'm going to start on the left with the Child Opportunity Index. As a reminder, the Child Opportunity Index, which we often refer to as COI, is a combination of characteristics that indicate that children living in that area are at higher risk for poorer outcomes. As you can see by the chart, The children we served in these home visiting programs, majority of them lived in the very low, and moderate opportunity areas. Again, the lower the opportunity, the higher the risk for these children. In fact, 39% of these participants lived in very low or low areas of opportunity. I'm going to draw your attention now to the right. You'll see a distribution of females and males. And you might be wondering, 5% males? That seems pretty little, right? Well, this is representative of a historical pattern for home visiting programs. They largely have focused in the past on mom. Mom's the one who's pregnant. Mom goes to the OBGYN office. Mom has the baby. Frequently, mom is the first line of contact for these families. However, we know that can't continue. Fathers are important too. And with our efforts in fatherhood, we targeted specific services in these programs to engage fathers. So while 5% does indicate we have work to do, it's important to note that since FY19, we've improved serving fathers by 50%, an increase that shows that our investments are working to bring fathers into services. So now we have the race and ethnicity of this group served. Over 50% identified as white, 35% Black, and smaller distributions of multiracial, other race, or Asian. 27% were of Hispanic ethnicity. And to give you a little picture of what the age of these parents are, the majority of them are 24 to 30 years old. Now that we've shared what home visiting programs are, the investment that JWB has in them, and who we served, let's talk about outcomes. The question that's always asked, is anyone better off? As Kelly mentioned, these programs at the heart are about prevention of child abuse and neglect. So naturally, as evaluators, we want to know, did we prevent abuse? Did we keep these children safely in their homes? So I want to lead with this. Yes, the families are better off because they were in these services. 98% experienced no abuse or neglect during services. And up to 1 year after services, 99% experienced no abuse or neglect. This indicates a sustainability of these interventions. Furthermore, when we look at out-of-home placements, 99% had no removals from their home, and 100% had no removal up to 1 year after. So I also want to draw your attention to the trend here. You can see we have very consistent outcomes in these areas. That's a tribute to the caliber of these staff that Kelly talked about. Also, I want to highlight that these fiscal years are in the heart of the pandemic, where children are exponentially more at risk. Families have additional stressors we never were prepared for, and we continue to be able to hold these outcomes steady. While those outcomes are amazing and impressive, the absence of abuse is not always enough. We want to improve parenting skills. We want parents to thrive as they go through parenthood. So I'm going to highlight a few of these outcomes as well. 83% improved attitudes towards physical punishment. Physical punishment, the research shows that it's not an effective means of discipline, and we want our parents to know that. We want to give them alternatives to physical punishment. 75% improved empathy towards children's needs. That's a fancy way of saying that children have needs, they have feelings, and they need to express those feelings. And while as a parent, they don't always express them at the most convenient times, like the temper tantrum on aisle 4 from your toddler, that in fact is a developmentally appropriate way for a toddler to say, I'm unhappy. And parents have to try to keep that in mind. 70% of improved parenting efficacy. This simply means that the parents believe that they can be good parents. And research shows that the more confidence you have in something, the more you will succeed in it. So now that I've given you the data, I'm going to bring Kelly back up here to share the families behind the numbers.
Thank you, Megan. I think we really could spend the rest of the day, probably hours and hours, sharing some of the success stories from these programs. But in lieu of doing that and keeping you here for all that time, we're going to highlight 3 stories today from some of our home visitation programs. For the family you see on the left, this mom enrolled in the Healthy Families program prenatally after scoring high on their screening tool due to an unplanned pregnancy and as well as experienced significant financial stressors in her life. The home visitor worked closely with the mom to provide education, support, and resources. She engaged with multiple program components, such as accessing a counselor, seeing the program nurse, and also participating in a plethora of parent groups and events. A large focus of the work with her was working on her financial resources, and through ongoing budgeting assistance, she was able to move into a larger home for her and her family. She has since gone on to achieve her CDA, which is her Child Development Associate credential, and to work in her own child care classroom, so very close work to what we do here. Her son is meeting his developmental milestones. He's thriving in VPK, and the family recently graduated from the program. So this is one of those instances where the program worked with a family for over 5 years. For the family you see in the middle, this is a mom who enrolled in the Nurse Family Partnership Program with a high-risk pregnancy due to maternal age, a history of 4 miscarriages, and a stillbirth. She was experiencing significant anxiety and grief related to those losses. She also had experienced some healthcare disparity. But by working with her nurse home visitor, she processed that anxiety and grief and gained the strength of self-advocacy for herself and her unborn child. She advocated for her healthcare wishes related to her labor and delivery and went on to develop a healthy baby boy at term. This nurse home visitor worked with this family on learning about their son's growth and development, and even the maternal grandmother, who's pictured there, participated in the visits as well, so it really was a family affair. They've now since graduated from the program and often keep in touch with their nurse home visitor. They shared that they wish that more families had this kind of support because it helped them along the way. Last up, we're highlighting 2 high school graduates from the kinship program, which you see the 2 pictures on the right. Their maternal grandmother cared for these boys for most of their lives, and they'd been part of the kinship program for over 15 years, participating in the ongoing family support group component. The grandmother shared that while it was challenging to raise her grandsons, who both had disabilities, the support provided made it all possible and helped her along the way. She shared her grandsons were treated like other children, which helped them to feel accepted because they were no longer defined by their disabilities, and it did not define who they were. She shared overall that the program was a huge blessing to her and that she's just thankful it exists. So now I'm going to turn it over to Megan to land this plane to talk about next steps and discuss where we're headed.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, so we've gone over the funded programs that we have, the outcomes we see, but we wanted to take some time to discuss some of the strategies in our strategic goal areas that connect to this work. 4.2, work collaboratively with the child welfare system to target high-risk families and maintain safety. Well, you've heard that's almost exactly what these programs do. So we have over significant amount of funding towards this goal. In addition to that, you'll hear from Family Support Services just after this presentation, who we partner with and meet with regularly to understand how we can better utilize resources in our community. How can our funding and their funding walk alongside and complement each other in order for the best outcomes for children in our community? 4.9, implement a workforce stabilization program. We've talked about workforce stabilization a lot You guys might be a little sick of the term, but it's important. We know after the pandemic, workforce has suffered across industries, and our social services are no different. In fact, they might have been even hit harder. So these programs were also open to workforce stabilization funding. And what's important about that is, as Kelly talked about, the trust that people develop with these home visitors when we're talking 5 years of programming. If you have turnover over and over in your home visitor, that trust is never going to be established. We'll be coming back to the board soon to give a presentation on how workforce stabilization funding has impacted our programming and the effects that we see. 4.10, procure and implement new programs to meet strategic goals. This is in reference to the new program we've recently funded. And what I want to do is take a little time to go over each of these programs and describe what we have on the horizon and what we're excited to report back soon. So we've highlighted just a few of the new programs because these ones are very connected to home visiting. So this portfolio has significantly expanded. First, I'll start with the Healthy Start Coalition of Pinellas. We funded 2 programs, a part of our LOI RFP process. The first is called First 1,000 Days. This program is what we call a home visiting light type of program. Instead of being home-based, because we know so many families aren't comfortable with that, but yet still at risk, it's a phone intervention where we maintain phone contact with the family, do developmental screenings over the phone, do safe sleep education, and continue to give them resources in order to thrive and keep kids developmentally on track. Empower. This is a service that is intended to support healthy births and healthy pregnancies and improve child development. The services start prenatally and they continue postpartum up till the child's 3rd birthday. What's unique about this is they're using doula care, professional lactation support, and educational play groups to support this development. Children's Home Network, our caregiver support services. This is a respite program. You might recall when we funded this through an RFP process. This respite program is a multidisciplinary approach. So instead of providing relief to caregivers who are experiencing additional stressors because they're caring for kids of physical disabilities, social emotional challenges, what they do is wrap around the whole family and provide that respite as well. It's also centered around what the family's needs are. So do they need services in the home? Do they need center-based respite? Or do they have a trusted family member that we'd like to use as their respite care provider? Next, we have Directions for Living. This program, Together We Rise, is trauma-informed center family interventions that address mental health and substance abuse challenging. This is a multidisciplinary approach as well, but what's specifically important about this is that these referrals come directly from the child protective investigators. These are families that are deemed safe and remain in the home, but they're categorized as high or very high risk. So we have these programs wrap around that family in order to keep those children safe and provide the support that they need. And lastly, Gulf Coast Jewish Family and Community Services, their teen parent engagement program. This is a leadership type mentoring program for teen parents. It's an evidence-based model and it supports each teen in graduating from high school, obtaining adequate employment to care for their family, and teaching responsible behaviors that will foster a better parental relationship. So while it's Kelly and I's pleasure to be able to share these wonderful outcomes, we're most excited about how our portfolio has expanded and how we'll be able to come back to you soon to tell you how these programs are impacting our community. And with that, we'll entertain any questions.
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. I want to say thank you for a wonderful presentation, but more than anything, if the providers are in the audience, I want to thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for going into the homes of those families that are most vulnerable. You keep them from coming to court, and it may not seem like you're making a difference, but as I have navigated the waters of this last year, you are making a difference in our numbers that come to court. And so I say this, keep up the fight, and I appreciate what you're doing. Any more comments, questions, or concerns?
I think you pretty much said it all, Judge. I think it's overall fantastic job. The numbers are pretty impressive. I'd like to see the more details behind them. But in general, just hearing about the families and seeing what's changing and seeing how they're being moved towards a better place in life is heartwarming. So continue, keep up the great work.
Thank you.
And that leads into a perfect segue. We now have Ms. Jen Pescion, who is the President and Chief Executive Officer with Family Support Services.
All right. Well, good morning. Thank you very much. I just want to thank Beth and her team for extending the invitation for me to share some updates with you this morning. As I'm sure you all will remember, we became the lead agency for Circuit 6, both Pinellas and Pasco, in January of 2022. This was not, I'll tell you, this was not on our strategic plan to expand our efforts really overnight. We had about a 30-day transition time period, but we are so grateful for the way that the community has welcomed us. As I said in the beginning, this really was an opportunity to come home for me because I was raised right down the road from here in Pinellas County. And Family Support Services has a 20-year history of being the lead agency for child welfare services in the Duval-Nassau area, so Jacksonville part of the state. And we were so privileged to be able to link arms with this community and really lean into the things that we know work to support and stabilize families to make the system better. And we know that we're not exactly where we want to be yet. We still have more work to do, more building to do, but we're getting closer to that 2-year mark, and I've got some exciting updates to share today. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. We always start every, let me see, where do I point this one? Let's see. Are we on? All right. You go check. Thanks. We always start everything with a focus on our mission. Every board meeting, every agency meeting, for us, this really centers us. And our mission as FSS is to be, thank you, the leader in providing safety, stability, and quality of life for all children by working with the community to strengthen the family unit. And I think that really highlights what makes what has made things such a successful journey these past almost 2 years is working with the community. Many of the partners that have already been mentioned today are partners of our organization as well. So I have a few significant milestone moments that I want to share. Perhaps the one that is most exciting to me is that since January of 2022, we've been able to reduce the number of children in the out-of-home care system by 25%. That is more than 700 children that were in the foster care system when we came on board that have now been able to be exited to permanency. That means that we are both keeping kids from coming into the system that don't need to be in the system and being able to exit those kids that really just got stuck in a system that was overwhelmed and overloaded, where children were not able to achieve permanency as needed. And by the way, that number is literally something I watch every single day. I pull up the data every morning when I get in. When we started, it was 2,670 children in the out-of-home care system. That is true removal, whether placed in a licensed foster home or a kinship placement. As of this morning, it is 1,939. This community has not been under 2,000 in many, many years, so that is huge. And we know that this reduction not just helps to stabilize caseloads and workloads and allow for quality work to be done within our case management and partner agencies, it has an impact throughout our system of care. And I think Judge Moore alluded to this a moment ago. Again, when we came on board, and Karen at the state attorney's office shares these numbers with me every Monday. We talk regularly. So when we started, there were more than 1,900 judicial cases, and now there are 1,441 cases. Again, something that this community has not seen in at least 7 years, which is as far back as we could get the data to cooperate with us. We also have been increasing our supports to our kinship families. I think that this really well aligns with one of the goals of JWB we as an agency believe that if we do have to remove a child from the home, the best place for them is someone that is known to them, whether that is a blood kin or a fictive kin, someone who already has that relationship. And when we place those children in those homes, the only way to keep them stable, we know that the data nationally tells us that kids placed with kin have a shorter time to permanency, have enhanced well-being outcomes, have better sense of identity and self and family, and typically have enhanced visitation with their parents or siblings if they happen to be separated from them. Our kinship homes receive the highest level of support when we can get them through a kinship licensing process. The goal in the state is a 40% level of licensure of kinship placements. We started at about 29%, and we are almost at that 40% mark, but that is not somewhere that we stop. We truly believe that that is the best source of support for families. And so in our North counties in Northeast Florida, we are well over the 50% mark and continuing to strive forward. There is no cap for us. We will keep going until every single home that we possibly can get licensed gets that enhanced level of financial support and additional training and resource connection. And then the removal rate. This is one that I'm particularly excited about, and I'll show a chart in just a second. But the removal rate in this community has been reduced by more than half, which is incredible. We've been able to keep kids safely in the home by moving upstream and really building out intensive, strong family preservation programs that our child protective investigation teams can draw on when they find a family that needs that level of support. So this is one of my favorite charts. This is a look back at a monthly list of entries into the foster care system as well as exits from the foster care system. The red is removals from the home. The green is exits from foster care, so achieving permanency through reunification, adoption, permanent guardianship. 11 out of the last 12 months. You could say 12 months because October we're in the right direction, but the month isn't over yet, so I won't claim victory just yet. But 11 of the last 12 months, we have had more kids exit the foster care system than entered. That is what is allowing us to get this system into a healthy and right-sized capacity again. We estimate, based on lots of research that I won't get into and data points, that a healthy number of children in the system for this community of this size with these socioeconomic factors is about 1,800. Excuse me. As I shared, we are at 1,939 right now. We believe that we will be at 1,800 before the end of the fiscal year. And our hope is to actually get it lower than that. 1,500 to 1,800 is really where we ideally will be, but 1,800 will be kind of the high that we would like to see and believe is possible. As a reminder, there were 2,670 kids in the foster care system when we came on board. So that is a very overloaded system for the capacity that this community should be able to accommodate. This is really a breakdown of entries and exits specifically for Pinellas County. So some of the data that I've showed is really circuit level data, but this is specific to Pinellas. We can see the positive trends highlighted specifically here, that we have a good number of exits. One thing I'm really excited about, we were selected to pilot an adoption initiative. And again, I have to thank Judge Moore for her and the rest of the judiciary's willingness to partner with us in this as well. But it was an opportunity with the Department of Children and Families. It was only us and one other circuit that were selected to take a look at adoption rules and regulations and say, what are those things that really don't add value to the adoption process, but are a lot of additional paperwork that delays a child getting a finalized adoption? And specifically focusing on children who are already placed in the home that wants to adopt. In some cases, those children had been placed in the home that wanted to adopt for 2 years or more. That is way too long. Children should achieve permanency much before that. We were able to pilot a program and provide input on a state level of what we could reduce without reducing any of the quality. And by doing that, this first quarter of this fiscal year, July to September, we were able to finalize more adoptions in one quarter than has been done in years in this community, but that definitely has been done since we came on board almost 2 years ago. So we're really excited about that. Well over 100 children were finalized in adoption just in the first quarter. We have many more that are on track to be finalized before December. We're doing a big Home for the Holidays push, and we have a great partnership with the Tampa Bay Rays, and we'll be doing adoption finalizations with the Rays at the stadium in December. So lots of great stuff going on. So this is really the front end of the system, and just a reminder and a look back of where we started. So this was the quarter right before we were asked to come and link arms with the Circuit 6 community to be the new lead agency. This community had long been known as the highest removal rate by far. You can see that top bar really far exceeds any of the others. And so this was one of our first priorities. We knew that we had to stabilize the workforce. We were operating, our in-house case management team was at about a 25% capacity of filled positions. And so as we staffed out that workforce and were able to bring people on board, the first area we focused on was building out family preservation programs. And I'm happy to report that we are now not the highest, we are actually lower than the state average for the first time in at least 7 years. Yes. And I think what this tells us is that children in Pinellas County are not more unsafe, more in harm's way than children in the rest of the state. But what we needed was additional programs and supports built up front that we could strengthen families before removal was the only option. So as I said, we've really focused on building out those programs. We have our STEPS program that we have built out that serves children who have been the subject of an investigation, but who are determined to be safe, but that family is at high or very high risk of future maltreatment. Oh, sorry, did you do that? Did I do that? And that was really an unmet need in the community. There was not any resource capacity to serve those families. And now we are seeing those programs really, really grow. Our next program is our FAST program, which is for children who are determined to be unsafe. That investigator could draw up that petition, bring it to Judge Moore, and it could be granted as a shelter. But our mentality is, can we try first? Can we try and keep that child safely in home with a strong safety plan, robust interventions, the same services and supports that family would be afforded if the child were removed, but doing it in the home before removal is the only option. And what we know is that can work and work very well. And so as we built out those capacities, we're able to serve kids further upstream and not require removal and family separation. So that is really what has been able to achieve those lower removal rates, and we're really grateful for the partnership that we have had with both of our sheriff's offices in the circuit. They really were appreciative and grateful of building out those services, and now that things have transitioned back to the department, we're continuing that strong partnership and making sure that they know everything that's available to them, so that if they have a family that they're concerned about, that they have those ready access to resources. This is a quick snapshot of those family preservation programs. On the left is the STEPS program that I mentioned for our children who are safe but high and very high risk. We launched that program in November of 2022, and you can see what a tremendous immediate growth and utilization that was. And then on the right is the census for the FAST program. We worked with our existing partners, which in Pinellas County is Lutheran Services, and they adapted their programming and really implemented our model of the FAST program, and you can see pretty significant utilization of that program as well. So before I get on to the judicial piece, the last thing I'll say on that is part of our culture as an organization is that we really want to serve all children and families as far upstream as we can before even that hotline call is made, which that is not what our contract is for with the department. We really are focused on those children who have already come to the attention of the hotline. And sometimes because of that, the funding streams can be a little bit more challenging to utilize for those cases that truly are not at that candidacy for foster care or at imminent risk of removal. Those are two of the criteria terms that we have to utilize. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to do it. So we are actually waiting. Monday, we should hear about a grant opportunity from the state that would allow us to actually enhance some of those services and be able to potentially even take community level referrals for those children that someone in the community is concerned about, but it does not rise to the level of needing to call in the hotline. And that's another piece that we've really been working on and have had the opportunity and been invited to train all of the school district guidance counselors and a number of the team at Johns Hopkins All Children's about the differences in mandated reporting versus what we call advocating supporters. Those families that they're concerned about, and rightfully so, but they know that it's not an abuse or neglect issue, that it really is the family needs access to services, needs someone to give them a warm handoff and connect them with supports. Maybe it's a poverty situation or a short-term concrete need, but being able to serve those families without it having to go through the hotline is one of our goals as well. So this is just a quick snapshot, essentially drilling in a little bit more detail for Pinellas County judicial cases. This is our in-house case management team, the number of children that we have been serving in primary care. You can see that those numbers are going down. And if you overlaid this map with the chart of in-home cases, you will see that as in-home is going up, the out-of-home case count is going down, and we cannot wait for the day that those meet in the middle, and hopefully even cross. We want to serve more kids in the home safely and prevent that removal from being the necessity. This is our partners with Lutheran. They do the other. We're about split, almost 50-50 with case management coverage between Lutheran Services and our in-house case management team. And then this is a snapshot of some of the judicial data that we have been able to really reduce the numbers of judicial cases as well, and the types of exits that we have seen since July 1. I shared what a great opportunity we've had to really lead the way for the state. A lot of the other agencies are really jealous of the opportunity we've had on the adoption pilot, but it's not just adoption that we're focused on. Now we're really honing in on reunification. We've seen our reunification numbers going up, and we believe that we can do even more in that space. And as you see, reunification is, of course, our first goal if we can make it happen. 95 cases of reunification with parents and 44 case closures of adoption. These are case counts, not child counts. The child count for adoption is significantly higher than that. But just wanted to give a snapshot of that, as well as what kind of categories children are in that still have a goal of reunification. We are focused on those children that are in that 9 to 12 month plus mark with a goal of reunification and hoping to be able to safely exit those kids before the holidays. All right, I definitely want to leave some space for any questions, but hopefully you find that update encouraging. We are encouraged, we are excited for this community and what we have been able to really do together and build out together, and we know that this is really just the beginning. We are excited to move from I think when we first came in, we were in crisis response, and now we're in a stabilization phase. But next that we have our sights on is innovation, and we will continue to challenge ourselves to do better for every single child and family in this community, and we're looking forward to being able to do those things together in very soon.
Any questions from the board? I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to say, when you guys first came in, I was wondering who would accept the contract and why.
I remember you said that. You said that to me.
Because we were in a crisis mode, but I want to say thank you to the whole organization because you guys not only came in with an open heart and an open mind, but you guys were willing to have those courageous conversations that were not always so pleasant. But I want to say thank you for the changes that you guys have made and for the changes to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'd like to echo that also, Jen. We were very apprehensive when Eckerd blew up, and here we were left with this mess going on, just like overnight, basically. And so, like the judge, I was apprehensive about who was coming in and what in the world would they want to be doing this for. But you've done a fantastic job. You've helped out tremendously to us in the office, our child welfare legal services, by dropping the numbers down as you have. And I just say kudos to you because it's made a big difference for us, both in Pinellas and Pasco.
Thank you.
I'd like to say I'm the new board member here, and so I'm just getting to know your organization, and that was a wonderful presentation, and what you guys have done is just tremendous. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to add that oftentimes our board members or others will say, so, you know, why do you fund this and not fund that, and, you know, where are the lines? And what I usually say about the child welfare system is we don't fund things within the child welfare system because that would be supplanting state funds that are designated for that purpose. But we walk right up to that line, and what's been a real joy is the opportunities to collaborate and coordinate those so that one way or the other we didn't have gaps between what we already provided or could provide and where you are. And you all have come so far into the diversion in particular that, you know, I think we're getting close to where we can provide services up to this point, and you pick them up and fund them out of your organization after that. So it's been a joy to be able to collaborate.
Thank you, Beth. And you may not want to come into our side and fund, but we definitely want to come into your space. We want to get upstream very much.
Welcome. Welcome.
All right. Thank you.
Next, we have our Chief Executive Officer's report.
Actually, we have a strategic plan.
No, I'm sorry, Linda, please forgive me. We have Ms. Linda Leedy. I skipped right over that.
You can be my director. All right, good morning, everybody. Today, I'm going to give everyone a quick update on where we are with progress towards our JWB strategic plan goals. This report is through September 30th, 2023, which is through year 3 of our 5-year plan. In front of you, you have a printout, because it's really hard to read on screen, of our JWB goals and strategies that have been approved by this board. So I'm going to give you a drum roll, status to date of where we are. Oops, go back. All right. So on the left, you see the bar that says we are at the estimated completion through September 30th was going to be 58%, and we are actually at 61%. And let me remind you how we calculate these numbers. The board approved the goals and strategies, and then the staff identified 135 tasks that would help us in accomplishing these strategies and goals. With each task that was identified, they set a start date and an end date.
And some of those tasks go through the whole length of the 5-year plan. Some started at the beginning, but they were supposed to wrap up in year 2 or 3. Some started in 2, maybe finished in 4. So based on those estimations, that's how we calculated our estimated completion through year 3 of 58%. And then each quarter, staff report the progress to those tasks, and then we roll it up for the strategies and the goals. So we are looking good. We're on track through year 3. Now I'm going to break it down by each strategic result area so you can see how we're doing one by one. So our newest strategic result area is early childhood development, and you can see that we are ahead of the game there. We have focused a lot of time and resources, and you heard today funding into that new goal. We are taking it seriously and moving forward. School readiness, also ahead of the game. School success is a little behind target, and I will explain that when I go through the details of each result area. Prevention of child abuse and neglect, also a little ahead of schedule. Strengthening communities, on par even, and then organizational capacity, just a smidge below target. So now I'm going to briefly highlight our accomplishments in this year 3. Early childhood development. As you heard from Karen, we funded 5 new programs in this space this year through our new strategically aligned program procurement. And they have all launched and are in the implementation phase. We also launched Turbo Babies. And it's been a really, really exciting year getting it off the ground. Our reach through 2023 was 5,600? 5,641 parents and caregivers who received either face-to-face education, our pit crew brain building bags, it's hard to say, April, and other educational collaterals through the pediatric offices and our partners in this effort. And Beth is going to speak a little bit more about that in her CEO report. But I also wanted to share that at the end, our last push in September was our media efforts with Vistra Communications, and we had some good media for NBC's 2 daytime shows, Daytime and Bloom, which none of us get to see because we're working full-time, but they exist out there. April Pucciolo and pediatrician Dr. Sarah Kelly from EverHealth were interviewed. And for Univision's Spanish daytime TV shows, JWB's Yaritza Garcia was joined by EverHealth pediatrician Dr. Yaritza Colon. And then finally, EverHealth's Chief Medical Officer and pediatrician Dr. Nichelle Threadgill lent her name to a full-page advertorial in the Weekly Challenger. So we are getting out there in the media space, and I was thrilled last week when I was driving home from the office and I heard on NPR the Turbo Babies ad. Like, yes, we're making it. So we are making inroads, as Mr. McCurrick said. Grand families. We laid the groundwork this year for grand families and to create a more cohesive network of providers who can support these families. And although this really shows up in our early childhood development strategic results area, grand families carry through all of our population. And in fact, our team has been educating our community councils and our neighborhood family centers on best practices content so that they can support some hosting of grand families events in fiscal year 24. And on that note, I really want to mention that, you know, the work that JWB has done in the collective impact and collaborative space in the 8 years or so is really making a difference. We are really able to see the gaps in services throughout the community, and as a result, we are responding and then able to link and connect in places that people didn't see. So for example, our 0 to 3 think tank has been meeting regularly and advising us, and we have had all 5 of those new funded programs present to the think tank about their project design, their objectives, what they're seeking to do so that the community understands, like we said earlier, what's out there and what's available and how to support these families. We've also educated the 0 to 3 think tank on grand families, and they have provided us some really good feedback and information. And then we've also, in fact, tomorrow, there's a meeting of the 0 to 3 think tank group and our Children's Mental Health Initiative care coordination team to figure out how better to support the coordination of the screenings that Karen was referencing, the ASQ and the ASQE, which is Ages and Stages questionnaire that really looks at the cognitive, social, and emotional development of our little ones, and how to use those screening results to educate the healthcare provider, the parents, and to be more of a solid continuum. So we really are making connections that are helping our families. And then, as you heard Megan reference, workforce stabilization monitoring is in process for all of our result areas. Okay, school readiness. We did fund and implement 2 new programs in this result area. We have continued to increase access to quality childcare. We supported the opening of Happy Workers this year with new dollars in August. And then last August, we facilitated the opening of the Lemon Street program in Tarpon. We also, as you heard earlier, really work closely with the Early Learning Coalition to leverage those dollars, like you just approved today, to make access to services better for children that really, really need it. And then, of course, workforce stabilization. School success. Book bus, book bus, book bus. We had 2 buses, 3 weeks, 70 stops, a record number of stops this year, and 60 volunteers on the bus and outside the bus, helping us get the kids in the bus and pick the books. And this year, we got a lot of media attention. And maybe we just hit a good critical mass. We were out there enough that Danielle and Joanna were interviewed every day. So we really making a difference there. Kindergarten counts. Again, another successful year. This year, we partnered with the St. Pete Parks and Rec and their campers, their students in the summer, to stuff the bags, 6,700 bags, with information for parents and families and coloring book and crayons on the importance of attending kindergarten every day. And then the district, of course, distributed that to their families, their kindergarten parents, to really reinforce. We heard from the district a number of years ago that parents weren't really understanding the importance of kindergarten. So we are trying to support the district in that effort. Evaluation of literacy programs. This is an area where we're a little behind. I get to say through no fault of our own, because you may recall that 2 years ago, the Florida legislature changed the assessment by which they were going to determine proficiency of students in reading and math. Last year was the first year that that new FAST test was delivered, and the district has gotten the results, and they are still evaluating and analyzing the information, the data on all their students. And then when they are done doing that, they'll send it to us, which we have been told should be December. And once we get it, then we can see how our participants in our programs are faring relative to the rest of the student population. Grade level reading, also a smidge behind because we had some staff turnover, but we are now back on track, and that should be where it needs to be in second quarter of '24. And then also workforce stabilization continues. Prevention of child abuse and neglect. In this area, we funded 4 new programs that Megan highlighted. Our Fatherhood Collaborative really took shape this year. We worked with a consultant. He came and presented to the board in July, and we are in the process of hiring a new staff person to really lead that initiative. Our Children's Mental Health Initiative is really taking it to the next level. We are really broadening our reach and working hard to make sure there isn't duplication and there's alignment. It's really it's something to be proud of. We're really making a difference, working closely with our Zero Suicide partners at Pinellas, as you heard, really on education about youth prevention of suicide, and listening to our youth. And Beth is going to talk a little bit about that. We had a summit. We co-hosted a summit on Saturday with New Visions Behavioral Health and Healthy Families, and it was really well attended. Family Services Initiative with the board's increased funding for the pool earlier in the spring. We are now helping additional families who, as you heard, through the fact that we've got 6 new Title I schools, there are families really, really in need, and we're seeing them daily through our Family Services Initiative. Respite. I just wanted to highlight respite because this was an area that was identified a number of years ago by our board as something that the community really needed, so much so that it was integrated into the strategic plan. And, you know, we started from scratch. Staff did the research on best practices. We developed the RFP. We put it out, did a competitive process, selected an agency. And as you heard, you may recall Paul Webb present earlier in the year about the implementation and the difference that we're making in that space and the technical assistance that JWB continues to provide to allow for fidelity to the model. So it was a need that was identified, and we rose to the occasion, and now we're helping lots of families. Our Sleep Baby Safely campaign was recognized by the state and is now being replicated and funded in 8 different counties. And then workforce stabilization. Strengthening communities, we funded 1 new program, and I want to raise up the Childhood Hunger Initiative. You know, this is one of those initiatives that we bring everybody into the room in the community that works in this space and we say, you know, what can we do better? What are the issues? How can we problem solve? And that is the work group that recognized a couple years ago that we have a real teen food insecurity problem here. And come full circle, when we put out our funding for the new strategically aligned procurement, we had an agency respond with a program to meet the teen food insecurity needs, as well as providing hot meals and snacks for after-school programs in 8 of their funded programs, as well as 20 community partner programs. Oh, and a teen cooking class. Our neighborhood family centers have been trained on turbo babies and grand families, and they have been focused on transitioning away from JWB's ASO this year. We also have a work started on our data-driven feedback tool that can be used by our community councils and our youth leadership committee to really help us identify additional needs in the county. And then we're still monitoring workforce stabilization in that space as well. And finally, organizational capacity. We have planned a staff assessment to determine organizational culture and staff engagement that we were going to do earlier in fiscal year 23. We've now postponed that to first quarter 24, so that's going to happen in December. And then we'll be back on track with that task. Our new accounting system was slightly behind. We're catching up, but everybody is confident that that will launch as anticipated on 10/1/24. We worked this year with our process improvement consultants, and Beth will be bringing recommendations to the board on that next month. That has been a labor-intensive effort. It required a lot of staff to provide information and look at the way we do things. And then a core group continued to meet and evaluate with our consultants. And I think the recommendations are good. It's just taken us longer than we thought. We continue to add more agencies to our direct data uploads, which means that it becomes automatic. They don't have to do their process monthly or quarterly. Look, raise clapping, but you will agree that it's fairly intensive work on both the agency side and JWB to make that happen. But our data warehouse team continues to add agencies every year, and we are on process or on target with that. And then we have signed the contract for our new grants management system and our new participant management system. That is on, we've got a schedule of all those things and when they're going to be implemented, and we are on track with that as well. So it's hard to believe that I'm actually saying that we're now in fiscal year 2024, because I actually remember Y2K, and now we're at 2024. But of course, JWB staff is off and running. Our agencies are off and running, as always, and we think that we're going to have another successful year. So with that, any questions?
If you go back to this, no, you don't have to, but if you go back to the organizational slide or operational slides, think back to when we started the strategy. When we put the strategy together, we didn't talk about new systems. We didn't talk about the fact that we were going to go into COVID. We didn't talk about staffing issues or those things. We just said, we need to do these things. And this is our new strategy. This is our new focus. The staff never flinched. They didn't come back screaming at us. They accepted the challenge. And then we added, on top of that, we added goals, to the goals, we added extended goals to Beth's management contract and said, oh, well, you know, we're okay with this, but you really need to take some stretch goals to do this. What I'm pleased to see and very thankful to see is that you didn't miss a step. You continued to focus on these things, you continued to grow, understanding the staffing issues that were there, but that didn't stop you. And so extremely impressive, and I want to thank all in the staff, everyone on the team, specifically Beth and you, Linda, for leading the charge and not telling us to pound sand on the way back out. So thank you again for what you guys have done.
Well, thank you. That really means a lot for all of our staff to hear. They do watch this meeting. They've been working very, very hard. And it's nice to be appreciated and that their work is valued. And we support them in that every day, but it's nice to hear from the board that they do too. So thank you.
May I? I'd also say that not only is your work valued, but I mean, your results speak for themselves. It is amazing coming in as the new person on this board, and what you guys do is just absolutely incredible for this community, so thank you.
Thank you.
And just one final comment about the results. As it relates to the Child Mental Health Initiative, the results are so great that I just lost my court psychologist to the initiative. So I don't know whether to be happy or sad.
Sorry about that. And we are pulling together data for the Children's Mental Health Initiative for our annual report. So you'll be hearing about that in in January, March, or early next year, second quarter.
Now we're at the point where we'll have the Chief Executive Officer's report.
I have to say, this has been a great meeting, and it's you know, it gives me chills sometimes to see how much our staff and our funded agencies and other members of the community have been able to accomplish. So it's pretty feel-good stuff, but it's legit. Linda mentioned our process improvement update. Our goal was to have the consulting agreement in place and for recommendations to be ready by the end of the year, and we were there in August and early September. So what we've been doing since then is sort of prioritizing those recommendations, getting ready to implement at least one, which will involve you. That's some recommended changes to our board policies, and one of those needs a change to bylaws, so we will be bringing those things to you next month. And it was also an opportunity with board policies for us to review everything, and Colleen reviewed things to make sure we're up to snuff with any new legislation and so on. But we'll be hearing more about it, about some of the pieces that you actually play in for board policies next month, and I hope we'll have a good discussion about those, and hoping you approve most of them, if not all of them. One of the recommendations from our process improvement consultant was to streamline our current data systems for increased efficiencies. And fortunately, we were already on that path. And last month, you took action to approve the transition of our current data systems to the Web Author or Flex Enterprises platform, which we are calling, because it's shorter, JWB Flex. So staff have taken steps to initiate the transition, let our partner agencies know that it's coming, because at least two of those systems they interface with. And so communications have gone out, and we've got a plan for implementation at various times during this year for different pieces and parts of that. Turbo Babies, so exciting. Linda shared that Turbo Babies campaign exceeded not only our goal for reach for this year, but our stretch goal for reach for this year. Reached more than 5,600 parents and caregivers, well above its target. The stretch goal target was, I want to say, around 4,700 touches and communications. So really terrific. Great work by all involved. I'm especially excited about our partnerships that will be growing. The first was and is with Evera Health. 43 pediatricians and medical staff have been trained, and so the pediatrician, being that most trusted advisor to new families, makes that handoff and that discussion and that recommendation all the more powerful. We're also really excited that some of our home visiting programs are using Turbo Babies as an integral part of their visits. And if I remember what Ray told me, they're largely dedicating one of the visits to sort of literally unpacking that bag and modeling and talking about how that parent can use the board book and use the other manipulable pieces and so on, and sending all of those messages. So once again, a really high-touch way of conveying the messages as well as the Turbo Baby bags for follow-on. It's great to have great partners. And then in addition, we went out into the community, and you can see that there, Kelly Roy, sending that message and getting to people that we might not otherwise get to. So we're busy and going and growing. Our website received 41,000, which still just blows my socks off, unique visitors. So, obviously all of our materials have that, if they can, have that website on them to drive people to the website for even more information, and people are doing it. What I don't know, and I'm not sure if we can get this analytic, is how many of those are Pinellas County folks, but we're getting play across the country with that program, because it's awesome. This year, our goal, besides expanding the reach and remembering that 7,500 babies are born every year, so it's not a one and done. You got a new crowd of 0 to 1s every year to touch. So this will be a continuous. This is April and Dr. Kelly being interviewed, and the bright Turbo Babies pit crew bag behind them. So our goal for this year, besides expanding reach, is to develop metrics and an evaluation plan that we hope will include parent, caregiver, and campaign partner surveys, as well as the reach metrics. Do we have Alicia Henson here? Yay! We haven't met yet. So, you started Monday? Yes. So Alicia is our new marketing associate focused on the Turbo Babies campaign. So it is a full-time effort, and she is uniquely qualified for that position. So we're very excited. Several events occurred over this last month that again knocked it out of the park. There was a focused faith-based symposium at Anona United Methodist Church. Drew 125 attendees to talk about the ways in which faith-based organizations can work with social service agencies and make referrals and touch to help all of the people in our community. On September 29th, JWB hosted the Out of School Time conference titled The Power of You. I got to watch this. It was done in a hybrid format, but a highly engaged way. There were watch parties for people throughout the county if they wanted to get together and watch together. A record-breaking 600 out-of-school time program staff, so frontline staff mostly, attended this development event. Participants learned practical ways to help kids thrive, build community, proactively address discipline, while also focusing on self-care, given the stress of what it is they do every single day. Our own Jamie Cole did an amazing job as coordinator of this very high energy and engaging conference. There were many others who had parts in it. She would be the first to say, but she was really the juice, and the online day of MC, as it were. And then last, and Linda referenced this, and you have at your table the program for the mental health awareness event for youth that was held at Eckerd College last Saturday, so just this last Saturday. And I would, in particular, draw you to the, one page in the agenda that talks about, that you can kind of see what the layout was. We had 100 in attendance, 60 of them youth, which really blows my mind. You think about getting 60 youth to come to a mental health event. And it, of course, was helpful for the adults who were there to hear youth voices, but it also really strengthened all our messages to the youth relative to, when to seek help and ways to build their resilience, to be stronger. One of the participants texted one of our speakers and said, because, we talk about all these numbers, but it comes down to one kid at a time. And that participant shared their own struggles, and then thanked the speaker and said, "Thank you for making me realize that I matter, and that people really care about me and would miss me." So something's working. On November 3rd, we have our JWB Annual Staff Appreciation Event at Eagle Lake Park, and we'll spend the day connecting, recharging, celebrating our staff, and the theme, you can tell the high energy of this, is crushing it every day in every way. We also invite our board members to come to lunch, probably not the whole day, because we want to let our hair down, and the salsa dancers might be intimidated, which are among our staff, by the way. But we'd welcome you to come to join us for lunch, and we'll be in contact with you with information on that if you are so inclined. So anyway, you can tell why I continue to be so proud of our staff and so grateful for our partner agencies and community connections. So thank you.
Thank you, Beth, for that wonderful report. Now we're at our information items. Do we have any questions, concerns, or comments from the board? Hearing none, do we have any public comments for the open agenda? So then that takes us to the Honorable Bruce Bartlett for our acknowledgement of anniversaries.
Kelly Roy, 1 year. Heather Davidson, 2 years. Beth Houghton, 4 years. Look at that, you're on there. I'll be darned. And Jamie Cole, 4 years. Karen Streetman, 4 years. Desmond Newton, 7 years. Paul Webb, 7 years. Rebecca Albert, 13 years. And Karen Bogus, 18 years.
Before I take a motion for adjournment, I want to just remind the board that you will be hearing from Ms. Mary Grace Duffy really soon regarding the CEO evaluation. Motion to adjourn? Thank you. Board meeting is adjourned.